cluster earlier this year, a 30,000 core cluster on behalf of a top 5 pharma. We got a great response from it. We basically ran a molecular dynamics simulation in hours instead of years in a very short period of time, thanks to a cluster that we were able to create. But the response we got online, we got a lot of questions about could I run this video game on this kind of cluster, or could I figure out how much capacity Amazon has. And instead, we thought the really important part about this kind of cluster is that we can actually answer questions that researchers would never consider asking, because they don't have 30,000 cores available to them normally on a day-to-day basis to run science. So what we thought was, let's create a challenge where we ask any nonprofit researcher that's doing research that will benefit humanity, something that will move science forward, move humanity forward, and we'll give them 8 hours on one of these 30,000 core clusters, or about $10,000 to run essentially any compute that they deem as worthy. So essentially we set up a blog entry to describe the motivation, the reason why we're trying to get scientists to not think about the problem in terms of the cluster that they have available to them to run it, and instead just think about what question would actually help move us forward, regardless of what infrastructure it requires. And then go through an application process, create a list of finalists, announce them at supercomputing, and be able to give someone the opportunity to run a really big compute for a very short period of time, and hopefully come up with some really good science. We had, in the double-digit number of responses, we got things from all areas of science. We had bioinformaticians, we had next-gen sequencing guys, we had material scientists, we had nanotechnologists, we had all kinds of different forms of science represented in the entries. It was a really hard process to come up with the finalists. Yeah, in mid-October we announced the contest, and we said everybody's got about 2.5 weeks to November 7th in order to be able to submit their entries. And that was last week. And then we would announce them at supercomputing, which we did on Monday, right, on the 14th at 8 o'clock at night. And essentially the response we got for a 2.5 week window to submit entries was great. We had a large number of entries to sort through. We figured out which ones we thought were the 5 most compelling in terms of their creativity and how they would benefit humanity. That was the primary lens through which we looked at the applications. And then when we considered, which ones would run well on this kind of cluster environment, and how could we actually get some real science done with the prize money we were giving away. And we came up with the 5 finalists, and we announced them Monday night at the Amazon booth at the Supercomputing Gala. So we have essentially finalists who get $500 originally. That was what we were planning, but thankfully the guys from Amazon were awesome, and they actually contributed additional funds to each of the prizes. So we had $500 for finalists and $10,000 for the grand winner. With Amazon's money, though, we got an additional $1,000 per finalist and $2,500 for the final winner. So what that means is that we're actually able to give out $12,500 to the final contestant, the final winner, to run approximately 300,000 compute hours worth of computation, hopefully to benefit humanity and do some really interesting science. We have Kevin Davies, who's the editor-in-chief of BioIT World. We have Matt Wood, who's a scientist originally, but now an evangelist at Amazon Web Services. And we have Peter Schenken, who's the VP of software at Schrodinger, which does a lot of computational chemistry and molecular modeling software. And then I'll also chip in with 2 cents as well, and hopefully we can pick a winner over the next several weeks. So we have folks fighting Parkinson's. We've got researchers fighting type 1 and type 2 diabetes. We have some people doing research to create a knowledge base of how stem cells, genetically speaking, from an RNA perspective, transfer into specific types of cells, the differentiation process, in other words. We have some folks looking at all the single nucleotide polymorphisms, the SNPs, that are mutations that are possible within the human genome. And we have someone that's trying to improve the efficiency of organic photovoltaic cells as part of a green energy initiative. initiative. And the institutions span, Harvard Medical School, the Harvard Green Energy Project, the Mordridge Institute at the University of Wisconsin. We have folks from the Ross Lab in Munich and the University of Notre Dame. So we got some really great finalists. It's going to be hard to essentially pick a winner. Late 2011, so by December, or alternately in January. It's going to be a scheduling fun, basically trying to make sure that we can get the presentations to the judges. The real challenging part for us was that we did something that was technically very difficult, right? We created a 30,000 core cluster in a very short period of time off of entirely virtual resources, some of which may have errors, and that was exciting, but it wasn't the most exciting part about it. The most exciting part about it from our perspective wasn't that you can do this from a technological standpoint. It's that someone's going to take one of these clusters and they're going to cure cancer, or they're going to cure Parkinson's, or they're going to cure diabetes. And that was the part that really actually made it exciting from our standpoint. And when we saw on the internet, and of course internet commentary is notoriously geared towards jokes and whatnot, but when people ask, can I run this video game on a 30,000 core cluster, it gets you a little bit disheartened that in all the glitter of having Slashdot and Forbes and a bunch of other publications talk about that cluster, we would miss what was truly gold, which is scientists can now get research done far faster and cheaper than they ever have been able to do before, thanks to grabbing these kinds of really large-scale resources for very short periods of time to answer specific questions. And we want to get people out of the habit of constraining the questions that they're asking to the size cluster that they currently own or can afford, and instead get them building the infrastructure to answer the question that really needs to be asked. And that's basically why we did this challenge, and why we're really excited about all the finalists that we have. And hopefully we can get some really awesome research done as a part of it.